Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Let me just say in the beginning, it was wonderful to see many of the discussions in the comments section from yesterday's video. Like all videos, it's a tremendous honor to present this content and these videos to such a thoughtful and engaged community. Thank you so much, everybody. Also, today is the second of 2 days of China's grueling college entrance exams. A record 11.9 million people have applied for this year's exam, an increase of 1.15 million from 2021. It is no exaggeration to say that for most, the results of these exams will affect the rest of their lives. So best of luck to them. Okay, first up, let's move through several key economic and financial developments from the People's Republic of China. Though the economic situation remains very poor, and as we have seen over the last 2 months, it is in a state of de facto recession. Some, with especially high risk tolerance, believe now may be a time to dive back in to the Chinese capital markets, which have been smashed over the last 6 to 12 months, with JP Morgan's chief global market strategist Marko Kolonovic telling clients on Monday, quote, "Chinese equities may have reached their turning point as lockdowns begin to ease, growth support measures continue, and news reports that China is about to conclude its probe into Didi suggest regulatory risks are easing." End quote. This is despite JP Morgan's own economists' recent downgrade of China's growth outlook for the year. We have examined signs in recent weeks which suggest that regulatory risks are reduced. However, in the current environment, we are also seeing erratic signals and at times contradictory policy priorities between the State Council and the Politburo Standing Committee. The Nasdaq Golden Dragon China Index surged during trading on Monday and Tuesday of this week, while remaining 50% down year on year. However, for Kolonovic, the declines of the past 12 months have created an opportunity for investors, quote, especially with the prospects of additional government stimulus, end quote. Next up, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin today published a telling infographic forecasting the potentially massive cost of rolling out mass COVID-19 testing to large parts of China's urban population. According to recent work by Suzhou Securities Limited, which we've discussed before, since April, at least 7 provincial-level regions and 55 cities across China, which together account for nearly 40% of the country's population, have rolled out some form of testing. The question of who should pay continues to be a political hot potato too, with the most recent direction from the central government being that local governments should pay for the programs rather than using locally managed medical insurance funds, putting yet more pressure on the fiscal resources of localities and local governments. As we can see here, the cost of testing everyone in China's first and second tier cities, some 505 million people, could reach 1.45 trillion yuan, over $200 billion a year. This is approximately 1.27% of China's GDP in 2021, or just under 8% of the country's combined central and local government general public budget revenue. As we've discussed, that's a lot, although we are now seeing a lot of local governments moving from 48-hour testing requirements to 72-hour testing requirements. Next up, anger from regulators over fake statistics from the local level. But first, currently, with so much uncertainty in the world and global markets, sound diversification into alternative asset classes is as important as ever. And as we have discussed before, one particularly attractive asset class is artwork. Indeed, according to Artpiece, the value of blue-chip art has outpaced the S&P 500 by 180% from 2000 through 2018, outperforming most fund managers. In the past, however, investing in artwork was limited to the super wealthy, but today's video sponsor and channel partner, Masterworks, is changing that. Masterworks is giving regular folks like us the ability and the opportunity to get in on the art investment world. Signing up is super easy too, it took me less than 60 seconds. Since 2017, Masterworks has exited 3 offerings, offering net annualized returns of 32% in 2020 and 31% in 2021. So if you would like to skip the waitlist for some of the most popular pieces, click the link in the description below. We remember that all investment involves risk. Always speak to an investment professional if need be before making any major investment. A big thank you to Masterworks once again for sponsoring this episode of China Update. In a rare sign of central government regulators' frustrations with fake statistics from local government actors, which is bad enough in good conditions but painfully counterproductive during hard times like what the country is experiencing now, the state-run Economics Daily, in a front-page editorial this week, wrote a scathing piece criticizing the state of fake statistics in the country and calling for more scrutiny of local actors. Quote, "Faking statistics is the biggest corruption in statistical work, and it constitutes the biggest harm to government statistical credibility. At present, China's economic development faces mounting complexity, severity, and uncertainty. With increasing downward pressure, we must remain vigilant against possible compulsion and behavior from some local governments, departments, or companies to fake statistical data." End quote. Now, of course, the piece did not bring up the same complaint for the central government. Meanwhile, port delays and a trucking shortage in the megacity at the heart of the Yangtze River Delta, Shanghai, are finally improving now that much of the city has been permitted to open up, though challenges remain. According to Flexport Inc., Flexport Inc., traffic into the city is returning to about 80% of pre-lockdown levels, and trucking is expected to return to normal by the end of this month. Unless there is another lockdown, of course, something we're going to discuss again tomorrow. Shanghai is still discovering cases in their community. As for Shanghai's port operations, according to local media reports, so take it with a grain of salt, daily container throughput has returned to about 95% of normal levels, with container vessel waiting times averaging 31 hours as of June 1st, down from 69 hours at their worst point in late April, according to Vessel's Value. Markets appear happy too, with port and shipping shares seeing price gains yesterday, but issues remain. Quote, "The city is now officially out of lockdown, but it will take some time for production and trade to recover completely. The easing of port congestion in Shanghai is expected to unleash a wave of containers on the US West Coast that could clog supply chains further. Global challenges appear as acute as at any time over the past 2 years. Trucking activity in Shanghai is still far from 2019 pre-pandemic levels, according to data from G7 Connect." Indeed, Premier Li Keqiang, with the force of the State Council behind him, inspected the Ministry of Transport on Monday of this week in a signal to the country that national transport and logistics needed to get back on track now that the lockdowns have eased in Shanghai and Beijing. As we have seen, they certainly have an uphill battle ahead of them. Next up, Australian and Canadian encounters with the People's Liberation Army Air Force. If you guys are enjoying the episode, don't forget to hit the like button, it's a huge help. In recent days, both Canada and Australia have issued statements about unsafe encounters with People's Liberation Army Air Force jets in East Asia and the South China Sea, raising concerns about what would happen in the event of a mistake or an accident in the current tense political atmosphere. Australia's Defence Minister told local media that 5 days after the Australian election, bringing the Labour government into power, a PLAA jet flew close in front of a P-8 and released material containing pieces of aluminium that were sucked into the Australian plane's engine. Over the weekend, Australia's new Prime Minister expressed the incident was very dangerous and that his government had complained to the People's Republic of China. Recently, too, Canada's National Defence Ministry told reporters that on, quote, several occasions, end quote, between April 26th and May 26th, Royal Canadian Air Force planes came into close interaction with China's People's Liberation Army Air Force. The Canadian military says that aircraft are in East Asia as part of a United Nations-backed military patrol to monitor sanctions placed on North Korea. The Defence Ministry called the PLAA actions unsafe and unprofessional. Australia and Canada are close Five Eyes intelligence allies. The two sides may have coordinated the timing of these releases to increase attention on the concerning PLAA behaviour, or it could simply be a coincidence. Regardless, People's Republic of China state media has presented the Anglophone nation's complaints as the lies of American stooges, with state-run Global Times writing in one piece about the Australian incident, quote, "No one can act as Washington's goon while making a fortune from China. It just doesn't work that way," end quote. PLA spokesman Senior Colonel Tan Kefei expressed this week, quote, "Australia should stop its dangerous provocative actions. Otherwise, Australia will be responsible for all severe consequences." End quote. Regarding Canada, in another state media piece, it was written, quote, "Reports claiming that the Chinese military aircraft buzz Canadian military aircraft are not consistent with the truth. It was the Canadian warplanes that travelled all the way to the East China Sea and conducted close-in reconnaissance, thus provoking China." End quote. This line, "travelled all the way to the East China Sea," is important. It suggests that there is a growing view within the military establishment in the PRC that merely being within the region is sufficient to be viewed as a provocation, thus justifying a firm response. If this is the case, then we should expect similar incidents to occur with increased regularity in the future. The concern being, again, what will happen in the event of an accident. That is today's episode. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I always love hearing your comments. Please throw them down below. Tell me what you think of the new thumbnail, trying a new thumbnail style. Would love to hear what you think. But for now, that is today's episode. See you tomorrow.